In this video I'm going to discuss what I think is the best focal length range to have in one single lens for landscape photography. So before I actually start discussing what the focal length range is and why I think it's the best range for use in landscape photography, what I want to clarify is a couple of important points. One, when I'm talking about focal length, I'm talking about using that on a full frame camera. The second important point is that I'm definitely not saying this is the only focal length range that everyone needs to use to do landscape photography. I'm not saying that at all, or that we should only carry one lens. What I'm saying is that based on my own experience and based on what I think works best for me, this is the focal length range that I definitely use most. I would say I take roughly 80% of my images within this focal length range. Also, if I'm going somewhere new and it's a long hike and I don't know what to expect, and I'm only going to carry one lens and therefore one focal length range, this is the range that I carry. This is the single lens that I would carry with me to save weight. I just find that this is a very versatile focal length range. It covers most things you would typically take. Obviously it will not cover everything, but it's just a very good general all-purpose landscape photography focal length range, and it's the one that I would recommend to people if they said they're just starting out, can only afford one lens. Which sort of focal length range do I think they should look for? Then this would be my answer. So the focal length range that I'm here to talk about today is from 24mm up to 70mm. I just find that this is a very versatile, useful focal length range for doing landscape photography. For me personally, I use the Canon 24 to 70mm f2.8L lens. I'm not here to focus on that lens today. It's a really nice lens, but it's the focal length range that I want to talk about. So down at 24mm we're at wide angle up to about 35mm. And often that's wide enough for me. 24mm is quite wide. If you go beyond that in full frame, say 23mm or less, you're going into ultra wide angle territory. And I love shooting ultra wide angle. I do it now and again for specific looks, for specific images that I want. But most of the time I'm not shooting ultra wide angle. 24mm to 35 is perfectly fine for me for wide angle for most general landscapes. Then as we go beyond that, we edge towards 50mm, 40mm and so on, the sort of mid-range area of this focal length range. And of course 50mm is quite well known, arguably, for being very similar to how we see things with our own eyes. And I think a lot of people avoid that sort of focal length range because they think the images look too normal. They want to go ultra wide angle or telephoto to make things look different to how our own eyes would see them. For me personally, I don't avoid these focal length ranges in the middle at all. I embrace them. I think they're fantastic. So if wide angle is too much, taking in too much, I just zoom in a little bit, or I can zoom in as something that's a little bit further away. If something close up, I want a detailed shot, I can zoom in. So it's fantastic to take shots in the mid-range of this focal length. Then as we get towards 70mm, we're touching telephoto focal lengths there. And of course that just gives us more versatility. We can really eliminate a lot of things we don't want in our scene. We've got more reach to zoom in on something that's further away, and we can really isolate something close up if we want to do that. So that's just some of the reasons why I think this lens is so fantastic and so versatile for landscape photography. As I said earlier, it probably covers about 80% of the images that I want to take. So I'm all set up to take my first shot for today, and I'm taking this one at 45mm, right in the middle almost of the focal range that I'm discussing today, in that area where many people don't like how certain images look, but for me I use this sort of mid-range focal lengths a lot. So I'm photographing these ruins behind me, and by being at that mid-range I'm making them quite large in the frame. If I go really wide angle they'll be too small, they'll have less impact and you won't see all the detail on them. Also, by being at 45mm, off in the distance behind me to the left there's some rocks coming in at the coast far off in the distance. Now they'll still be quite small in my photograph, but they'll be much more visible and noticeable and help make the composition better than they would be shooting wide angle. I've got some interesting mounds and grass in my foreground here, and the evening setting sun is casting some nice light and shadow across that, and also the shadows cast from the ruins themselves. So just by going at this sort of mid-range in the focal length range I'm discussing today, I've showed plenty of detail in this scene behind me, and I think it works really well.
Does it make you worry now? 'Cause I've been talking in my sleep again, around all the dreams we had. We're seeing shadows on the water. Oh yeah, so honest. We're seeing shadows on the water. But we made our promise to let the rest of our lives decide.
So as you can probably see, it's gotten really dark now. The sun is really behind some clouds, but because I've got 70mm to go to in this lens that I've got with me today, I can capture images much further off in the distance, and you'll probably see in the video these rain clouds that are moving across the scene from the left to the right. So if I'm quick I can get set up, and because I've got this borderline telephoto focal length on this lens, I can hopefully capture something interesting off in the distance, even though the lights went and the foreground now is very flat. As you can probably see behind me here now, the weather is really closing in, so photography is over for today. I feel I've made good use of the focal length range that I've been talking about. I grabbed a couple of shots behind me here, one at 70mm to take in as much detail as I could, and one at roughly 50mm, so I took in quite a lot of the sky and made quite a nice composition in my opinion. These are shots I wouldn't have been able to get if I only had an ultra wide angle or a wide angle lens with me today. Unfortunately I couldn't capture an image at a wide angle focal length, but I'll pop one up now just to show you an example of something taken at 24mm on this lens. I actually managed to take one more shot this evening, and I took it at 24mm, but I'll talk about that and show the image in a few minutes. First I want to show you this photograph which I took at 70mm. The image I captured at 50mm was quite interesting, but on location I had the instinct that the sky and clouds looked their best in this image, and that's also what I felt when editing. By shooting at 70mm I've been able to make the land and rocks feature strongly in this image, and also it was enough focal length to show lots of detail in these stunning clouds which were a long way off from my position. I've captured a bird as it flies from left to right in the direction the clouds were moving, and also you can see some hills in the distance as the rain moves past them. All these important details which make this image work would have been lost if I shot at a wider focal length. Like most images, I feel this one needs to be viewed on a large screen or print to be fully appreciated, as there is a lot to see. There is some subtle moody light on the land at the bottom left of the photograph. The hills way beyond it and to the right provide a complementary layer, and you can see rain sheeting down near both areas of land. That large group of moody yet beautiful clouds are of similar shape to the land, and the clouds just above the horizon and on the right of the photograph appear to almost mirror the shape of the land on the opposite side. I think the light and colour all work well in this image. There are lots of shapes that complement each other, and I feel lucky that I spotted the potential and had the right lens with me to get the shot I wanted. It was a fleeting moment that's turned out just right. Just as I was packing up to leave, the rain eased and some more colour appeared in the sky. The land was still quite lifeless due to lack of light, and I didn't feel there was potential for taking another photograph that I would like. However, since the rain eased, I thought it would be best for viewers to take a shot at 24mm from the same spot that I captured the image I've just been talking about. I felt this would be a good way to show the versatility of the focal range that I've been talking about throughout this video. Although the 70mm photograph that I've been talking about is a different aspect ratio, I retained the original width of the image. So in very general terms, it should be useful for some people to look at these two images from the point of view of comparing focal length. You can see the same section of land in both images. The first was taken at 70mm and the second at 24. Hopefully this should help show why I think this is a very useful and versatile focal length range, and why it's the range in which I capture most of my images. So that's going to be it for this video. The weather really has brought a close to the photography for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching. As always, I appreciate your time. And just before I end the video, I'd like to say a few words about something that I feel is very important. One of my subscribers, who I think's almost been subscribed to me since I started making videos, contacted me about a friend of theirs who recently had a medical emergency, and the Great North Air Ambulance Service came to his rescue and pretty much saved his life. He sent me a very short video, a link to this video which gives you some information about this, so I would hope you would go and watch it. I'll leave a link in the description underneath this video. Now while you're on that video watching, you may click onto the other contents of their channel, and you will see lots of videos of other people who have been saved, covering the great work that they do and the type of jobs that they do, the type of people that work there, and so on. So I'd really appreciate if you have a look at that, you spend a few minutes. It's obviously far more important than photography. Now if you can afford it and you'd like to donate, please by all means donate. But also keep in mind, around the world there will be other services doing an excellent job all around the world, saving lives. So if the Great North Air Ambulance Service is in your area and you wish to donate, that's great, but perhaps there's something else similar in your area of the world, and if you'd like to donate to them, I'm sure it would go a long way to saving lives. But thanks for listening to that. The link will be in the description. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.
To let the rest of our lives decide